Today I'm going to be showing you all of the steps, including the equipment that I use to create art prints that I sell in my Etsy shop. Currently, I just sell 8x10 inch, 5x7 inch, and 4x6 inch prints. I'm going to be demonstrating with this original skunk painting that was done in watercolor, and I thought that it was a great example to use because of all the fur detail. I used the Epson V550 photo scanner, and I got this for around $200 USD, and now it's risen to $679 on Amazon, I guess because Epson just isn't able to restock it on their website at this time. So yeah, there are plenty of other options out there, and I've heard that the Epson Perfection V600 photo scanner is just as great and can be found for as low as $229 USD. So I've opened up my Epson scanner, and you can just see an older file that I scanned and used this Marquee Cropper tool so that the colors are more accurate. The border here is just more yellowed than I would like, and I've found that this method brings back the contrast and white balance of the scan back. Here's the settings that I use: document type reflective, auto exposure type photo, and for the image type I select 48-bit color. Basically, the more color bits a photo has, the smoother or better the image is going to look. As for my resolution, I typically just do 600 dpi, which is pretty high for the size I'm printing at, but in case I ever want to do bigger prints in the future, it's important that I set a higher DPI. This little gray sphere here is the auto exposure, and I just turn that on and make sure to have unsharp mask and dust removal checked. I have my skunk painting in the scanner already, and I'm going to go ahead and preview it, which is when the scanner just does a quick scan of everything so I can adjust the marquee to fit my image, make sure all of my settings are right, and do the final scan. So notice here the ripples of the paper in the preview scan. It just gets that way sometimes with watercolor paintings, so I'm going to place some weight on top of the scanner to help flatten out the painting. I just used a big bag of coins as a weight, and yeah, this scan preview looks much better with this added weight. I'm ready to scan now, so I'm just renaming it, and I always format them as a TIFF file. I've just found that this looks the best with all of the other settings that I use. I've got my painting opened up in the latest version of Photoshop for Windows. I always use Photoshop to edit my work, and I'm just going to rotate it and duplicate the background layers so that I can edit the image. Now, using the magic wand tool, I'm going to left click to select around the image, and you can do this a couple of times if it's cutting out your artwork, but mine worked pretty well. Going to the top, I'm going to select the Select tab and invert the magic wand tool so that the skunk is now selected and not the white space around him. Moving up to the Select tab again, I'm going to Shift click, Select, and Mask so that this little tab pops up. So there's a drop-down menu here in the new tab for other backgrounds, just to see your painting easier now that it's been cut out, and I prefer the black, so I'll keep that. I've found the select and mask method for cutting out artwork to be the easiest, especially for intricate ones like this. There's some different settings that you can play around with to make the edges look better, like the radius, smoothing, feathering, shifting the edge. Once I've played around with the options for a bit, I'll go ahead and create a new layer with Layer Mask. At the bottom here, you'll see the mask linked to the painting, and you'll notice that the painting is blocked in with white while the area around it is black. This will make more sense in a minute. As for right now, I'm going to create a new layer, drag it down, and fill it in with black just so I'm able to see what I'm doing again, like I did with the Select and Mask tab. Okay, so the black on the masked layer acts as a literal mask to cover up the area around the actual painting. So making sure both swatches are set to white and black, I'm activating the brush tool while only the mask is selected in the top layer. You want to make sure that the hardness and the opacity of the brush is set to 100% if you want those crisp edges, that is. Now, black acts as the new eraser in a way, while white is able to actually paint back whatever you mess up. Remember, you have to have the actual mask selected in the right hand corner. So instead of using the normal erasing and constantly undoing mistakes, you have masking. The hotkey to switch between white and black is X for me on Windows, and it may be different for Mac. I've just sped up the process using the brush with black and white to clean up some areas where the select and mask feature missed, like in between these flowers for example. I actually think I set my radius too high, so a bit of the texture from the paper was peeking through around the skunk, so I just went in and removed all of that. I used to use the eraser tool to erase around all of my paintings, and this just took hours. I just wasn't familiar with Photoshop, so whenever my friend showed me this method, it was pretty great. Since I'm just printing on white paper with no colored background or anything, I'm not going to mess with most of the transparent looking fur around the edges because it just looks fine on the white paper. However, if that's not what you're going for and you have to have a darker background, or you want to have a darker background, then you can use the hardened brush with white to paint over any transparent areas. Alright, so I'm finishing up with this step and I've switched to a medium gray background on the layer underneath just because it sometimes helps me see the remaining things that I need to touch up. Done with the mask. I think it looks good, especially on the white background, so now I'm going to go down here and apply the layer mask to the painting that it's linked to. The layer is transparent now and you can move it around freely. Now that they have combined, I'm going to select the clone stamp tool to remove any tiny hairs or fibers that could either be stuck on the painting or on the scanner. I'm going to Alt-click or Option-click if you're using a Mac computer to choose what I want to clone. I like to bring the hardness of the clone stamp down so it's not just a super noticeable circle that's covering up something. And you just want to left-click to clone the area. Keep in mind that the clone cursor moves and the cloned area is going to keep changing, so you'll need to Alt-click to select the correct area that you want to replicate every now and then. Now that I'm happy with the clone stamp corrections, I'm going to go to the Image tab, hover over Adjustments, and select Brightness and Contrast. And believe it or not, I use this to correct my colors most of the time. I've kind of gotten to a point where I know it's light enough for my printer and it prints pretty dark, but otherwise the colors are spot on from the printer profile I use, which I'll talk about more in a minute. So yeah, this is just what I do and what works for me. The skunk is all done and ready to be copy and pasted to a 5x7 inch canvas set at 600 dpi. I make sure the color mode is set to CMYK. He's obviously too big for this smaller size, so I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and Scale to resize him. I have my rulers visible and set to inches, and I'm just dragging some guidelines to at least 1/4 of an inch so that I can resize the skunk in between the guidelines. It's good to have some space in case someone wants to frame the print. It's finally time to print, and I use the Canon Pixma Pro-100, and the prices have gone up for this one just like the scanner because it's just out of stock on the Canon website. I'm sure there are many people selling their used ones for a better price online though. This is an 8-ink dye-based printer, and I've heard that nowadays this ink qualifies as archival. The ink is expensive at about $17 a piece, but it's so worth it to be able to have your own printer and just print on demand. Do your research and see what printer works best for you because there are so many options out there. I used the Aurora Art Natural 285 fine art paper from Red River Paper, and I downloaded the Canon Pixma Pro-100 printer profile for this specific paper from their website. I guess that's why I don't have to do too many adjustments to the colors. For my print settings, I select photo printing as well as borderless printing and matte photo paper with the print quality set to high. So then I just make sure my printer profile for my specific paper is selected, and I'm all ready to send this over to my printer. I hope that you found this helpful, and please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I will try to message back as soon as I can. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content. I create art tutorials, time lapses, vlogs, and the occasional video like this one. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon, I hope.